Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another Friday. And it's time for Finance in 15. I don't know about you, but I actually can't quite believe where this week has gone. It feels like every time I turn around, it's Thursday again, and then it's Friday, and that's another week flown by. So I hope you've had a good week, whatever you've been up to. Hopefully you've got your management accounts sorted. If you haven't already done that, it is week 3 next week. So, afternoon, Yvonne. Hi, lovely to see you. So yes, Friday again, here we are. Please comment below if you're watching. It's always lovely to know who I'm talking to. And if you're watching on replay, you know the rules, hashtag replay, and please do leave a comment. It's just great to hear your thoughts and your comments, and it really helps me to create content that's going to be helpful for you. So please do join in. Okay, so this week is all about managing stress and getting out of stress. Now you might be thinking, why on earth am I talking about stress in a finance group? Good question. Well, I'm talking about stress in a finance group because I've personally had a long history with stress, and it's hi Rebecca, hi Claire, lovely to see you. And it's really been quite a blight on my life, if I'm honest with you. And because I've had this very deep awareness about stress, I've noticed really in every business I've ever worked in, I've really noticed how the impact it has on the owner of the business and the business itself, and it has a direct impact on the performance of a company. So it's something I've become very deeply interested in over the years. And what I actually started to notice was I hadn't come across a business that was well run, making good money, with consistent success, where the business owner was always stressed. There was a very, very predictable pattern where the business owner was stressed, where the financial results would always be elusive, the business was always in some kind of crisis or turmoil. So I became deeply interested in it and trying to help my clients really lift themselves out of that situation. And the thing about financial stress as well, it is particularly toxic. I'm sure, I hope you haven't, but you probably have, if you're a business owner, been in the state where you've been worried about money. It is really toxic. It goes to the heart of everything. It cuts to our survival. You know, like, will we pay the mortgage? Can we pay the bills? Can we buy food? You know, can we keep our business going? Financial stress is one of the worst types of stress you can have. So being conscious of it is very important, and it also really erodes our confidence and our beliefs in ourselves. I can remember many times I've been out networking in my early years, and everyone's going, oh, it's amazing, I'm doing brilliantly, and you're there dying inside because you're thinking, yeah, but I'm not, I don't know how to make this work yet, or I'm struggling for money, I don't know where my business is coming from, and it is really, really toxic. And there's no doubt from all in the last 21 years now, I spent working with hundreds and hundreds of business owners, that managing stress is a really key component of business success. Because if you keep in stress, it will stop you getting your dreams, and it will stop you getting financial freedom. So I mentioned that I've had a very personal history with stress. I'm going to share with you a very sort of deeply personal story about just how stress has impacted my life over the last 20, 30 years, I guess. Now, I mean, I've always put a lot of pressure on myself. And again, as a business owner, you can probably relate to that as well. And it kind of started when I was a child. My mum said I was always hyperactive. You know, I was going to sort of private education at 3 because she couldn't quite cope with me. So I've always been, I guess, a bit of a hashtag overachiever. But in my 30s, that really started to manifest as a persistent high anxiety level. I'd spent the last sort of 4 or 5 years doing my professional exams whilst working full-time at Next head office as a finance manager. And I was just working crazy hours. I'd set my first business up when I was 30, and I was working really crazy hours. In fact, I had a blueprint from my parents. They've always been hotel owners, working 100 hours a week, and I kind of saw that as the gold standard. You know, the more hours you work, the bigger the badge, the more you can say, look at me, look how many hours I've worked, look how stressed I am. I must be really important. What I didn't realise was how much damage that was doing. So I was working crazy hours, you know, in my early 30s, getting my business off the ground. I had a team of staff I employed, and I was kind of doing 80, 90 hours a week. And I basically hit full burnout when I was 36, which was very closely followed by a full breakdown. I mean, a complete breakdown for 24 hours. I couldn't function. I could barely move. I couldn't speak. And it was pretty terrifying. And those years and years of stress were having a very real physiological effect on my body. And, you know, like everybody else, you think you're indestructible. You think you can carry on working crazy hours, drinking too much alcohol, not eating properly, not exercising. But one day, I promise you, it catches up. So following this breakdown, I lost a year and a half out of my life. To the outside world, I was still functioning. I was still going to client meetings, but I was working from home. I hadn't been to the office. I didn't go to the office for a year and a half. And that's before they had Zooms and all these things we have now. And I could go out to a client meeting and I could muster enough strength to get through that meeting, but then I'd be in bed for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And this went on and on. There were days when I tried to go to work, I'd get suited and booted, walk halfway down the stairs, have a full-blown panic attack and end up back in bed. It was really horrific. And eventually, after a year and a half of this and seeing doctors and consultants, I got diagnosed with ME. Which you think, great, you've got a diagnosis, but it wasn't great because I was basically told by the specialist I went to see, and I went privately to get the best advice I could. There's nothing we can do. There is no cure. Your life is basically over. Rang the ME Association and they said, well, maybe one day in 10 or 20 years you might start to feel a bit better. But for now, love, give up your job, get rid of your telly. Maybe you'll be able to read a book some days, but, here's a nice support group you can go and talk to. Go and sit in your wheelchair and talk about how ill you are. Well, I decided by the time I got home that was absolutely not going to be my life. There was no way on this earth I was going to let that be the outcome. That was not going to be my story. So I dug and I researched and I talked to people until I found something, which is the lightning process, which is a process I did for 3 days, and I was back at work in 2 weeks. It reprogrammed my brain to change the response to stress and to choose different behaviour. So that really began my journey. I started to learn all these things that happen in our brain and our body, and what stress does to us is very, very real and very, very physical. And I started to really research into that, and I still spend a lot of time studying and looking at these things, because not only do they affect me, they affect almost every business owner I've ever worked with. So that's why it's something I teach. That's why it appears in my finance courses, and it's why it's something that's in the academy and in our one-to-one programs. Because until you bring the stress levels under control and learn to manage them and learn to work with it, you're always going to be tripped up by it. Now, the thing about stress is a lot of people say, yes, but I do my best work when I'm stressed. I need a bit of stress to get me to take action and show up and do these things. I've just thought, I presume you guys can hear me, because I just remembered I've forgotten to change my microphone over. Someone give me a heads up if you can hear me. Unless I've just been rabbiting for 8 minutes and no one can hear a word. Can anyone hear me? You guys can hear me. Yes, thank you, Sean. Confirming you can hear me. Yeah, that was something I have to get on the tech. So the science. If you're someone who thinks, yes, that I work best under stress and pressure, I want to tell you, categorically, scientifically, thank you, Yvonne, it doesn't. It's not the case. Stress is not good for us. Unless it's the kind of stress where we need to get out of the way of a car coming towards us, or we need to run away from a tiger. Apart from that, stress has very little use for us. In fact, it is highly destructive to our bodies. So I just want to tell you a few things that have now been scientifically proven that happens to us when we're under pressure, when we're stressed. So it puts us into survival mode. Now, this is a prehistoric system in our body, which was for when we had to escape from an actual tiger. And it said, well, if you need to escape from a tiger, we don't need digestion, we don't need to repair the body, we don't need cellular repair, we don't need to think about creativity or logic. We just need to run really, really quickly. So we'll switch on adrenaline, we'll switch on the blood supply, and we'll turn everything else off. Now, that includes the thinking and creative and decision-making parts of our brain. They get shut down. So if you're thinking, I make my best decisions and do my best work in a state of stress, you're categorically not right. It's just not physically possible. So it shuts off all these systems and it turns on the genes in our body that cause disease. They now know that all of our most common diseases, things like heart attacks, stroke, diabetes, cancer, type 2 diabetes, that is, hormone imbalances, IBS, memory problems, anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, just to name a few, are all now directly linked to high stress levels. Because high stress levels turn on those genes that cause disease. It's really scary when you actually realise what it's doing to your body. And I'm telling you this because I want you to be kind of freaked out by it, because when I learned this, it's like, I don't have a choice. I cannot afford to keep myself in this high stress state. I just can't. And it has actually really hurt me. What I didn't mention when I talked about my personal story was, as well as the ME, which was 100% directly caused by the high stress levels. And it's something I still have to manage really carefully now. I have that propensity to go into high stress. But I also had breast cancer 18 months ago. And there's no breast cancer in our family at all. And there are very, very, very strong causal links between high stress levels and cancers. And in fact, they know that something like 93% of cancer is caused by environment, not by genetics. So I have very little doubt that that's where that came from for me. So this stress and disease link is very real. Now, stress hormones also alter your state of reality and perception. I'm sure you can remember a time when you maybe had a crappy email come through, you've got really cross and you fired off a response straight away, when the next day when you thought about it, didn't seem so bad and you had a much more measured response. High stress state keeps us in that permanent state of anxiety and altered perception. So again, there were lots of reasons stacking up here why it's just not great for you. And the killer of it all, these stress hormones are actually highly addictive to us. So we actually love it. We love it's addiction like any other addiction to alcohol or caffeine or drugs. We get addicted to the chemicals of stress. So it makes us want to keep creating situations. So I know for myself, I would do things like I'd always leave it too late. I'd be rushing all the time because I was trying to generate that hit of those stress hormones that felt really good when they were happening, until you have the crash at the other side. So I've told you all about why stress is terrible for you. I just want to tell you now the ways that you can keep yourself out of stress and keep your body in a really nice, calm state, because that actually gives you much, much higher level of performance and calm and logic and creativity. So the first thing on the list is eating really well. You've got to put good fuel into your body, which means eating high quality nutrition at every meal. That means a great breakfast, a good lunch. Don't skip meals. Keep your body fueled, but with good quality food. Cut the crap food, the junk food out of your diet, because that will just put your body and your systems under even more stress. Drinking lots of water, we all know about that one. Keep your body hydrated, keep your brain really hydrated with water. Now, a way to directly and immediately change your nervous system is to breathe deeply and slowly. This actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite part to your activated nervous system, which makes you hyper. This actually calms you down. It brings in that calming nervous system, which brings your heart rate down and makes you feel better. So that if you're in a state of stress, you can just take yourself out and breathe deeply and calmly for a few minutes. That will activate that nervous system. Moving, getting exercise every day, again, really, really important. Especially if you're at your desk all day, get up, walk around. I often go downstairs, put the radio on and dance for a minute or dance for a song just to get things moving again. Get out for your walk every day, have exercise. Meditation, I know lots of people do this now, it's very mainstream. When I was back in my 30s, I remember people saying to me, oh, you should really meditate. And I was like, I don't think you understand how my mind works. I am far too hyper to meditate. Thank you. Not realizing, of course, that was exactly why I should have meditated. Because meditation is basically weightlifting. It's weight training for your brain, for your mind, and it actually trains your mind to stay calm and to be able to react very calmly rather than fly off the handle and go into a stress state. Planning is a really, really big antidote to stress as well. If you plan well and you know what you're going to do each day and each week, and you've got space built into your diary, so not back to back to back to back and then wondering why you haven't got time to clear your emails. Planning really well, putting space in your diary and making sure your week is laid out in front of you and you're not going, oh my God, what shall I do first? And leaping at the first person who grabs your attention on email. And on that subject, we've got a whole session on planning next Friday, quarterly and weekly planning. Sleeping, we all know this is a critical one for stress. Not sleeping activates your stress system, stops your brain working well. We know that's not a good thing. And ironically, if you are keeping calmer, you're going to sleep better. If you're in a high state of stress, your sleep will be worse. It's a real vicious circle. Gratitude. Now, a lot of people think this is a bit woo-woo, but I know a lot of people it's becoming more mainstream for. it's actually physically impossible for us to be in two states at the same time. So we can't be angry and happy at the same time. We can't be stressed and calm at the same time. So by putting yourself in gratitude and being consciously aware of what you're grateful for, writing it down is even more powerful. If you're in a state of gratitude, you can't be in a state of stress. And it trains your brain over time to look for what's actually great in your life instead of focusing on all the crappy things, which we do when we're in a state of stress. Because in a state of stress, we're programmed to look for what's going to get us. We're programmed to look for tigers. Journaling, mentioned that in line with gratitude thing. Journaling, again, is really powerful just for unpacking your crazy thoughts and getting your head straight. Often I can sit down and journal when I'm feeling mashed, and it's like, oh, so there's actually only two things I'm worried about, not 15, which is what it feels like. And practicing certainty. When we're in a state of stress, we're going into fear. And in fear, we're actually practicing the worst case scenario. We're living the worst case scenario. And if we actually practice certainty and faith of going out, do you know what? This is going to work. This is going to be okay. It gets your brain trained to look for what's great and what's working rather than looking for evidence that it's not going to work, which is where we are in stress. And be very aware of your thoughts as well, because your mind can't distinguish between a real and an imagined event. So if you're thinking about it's not going to work, oh my God, my email inbox, oh my God, I'm stressed about that meeting, your mind thinks it's a real tiger, and it will create the same response. Even if you imagine how someone's going to respond to an email, you'll trigger the same response to it as if it's happening. And think high performance. If you owned a thoroughbred racehorse, how would you treat it? Would you feed it well and exercise it and keep it calm and happy? Well, think about that for yourself. If you want high performance, you've got to be in a calm, peak state. And I really would suggest get some coaching or support. I've got a coach I see every week or two, and she's amazing at keeping me calm and keeping me sort of tuned for high performance. So I hope you'll agree that the bottom line, start that one again. The bottom line case for stress is conclusive. It's going to sabotage your financial future, and it's going to sabotage your health. So I really hope that's given you something to think about on the subject of keeping out of stress, especially right now. I mean, life is stressful, right? COVID, lockdown, not knowing what's happening, uncertainty in our businesses. But piling stress on top of that will just make it even worse. So as I mentioned, next week, talking about planning, quarterly planning and weekly planning. It's one of the cornerstones of what I teach my clients. It's one of the cornerstones of the Academy. And please really do comment below. I'd love to know how you're finding things at the minute, how you deal with your stress, how you stay calm in your business. And please tell me, what topics would you like me to cover? I'm here to help you. I'm here to give you anything you need to help you get your business stronger, working better financially. So please do comment, do join in. It's lovely to hear from you all. And have a wonderful rest of the day, and try to have a great weekend. And I will see you all next week. See you soon. Bye.